So welcome to this video where I'm going to be talking about why companies actually use recruitment agencies. From my experience working as a recruiter in an agency, I've done a short stint internally, and I've also worked on many RPOs as well for some blue chip companies and some FTSE 100 companies. So I've had experience in the industry on all sort of sectors, large and small companies, and I just want to give my sort of input into why companies would use agencies. And if you're a recruiter yourself, this will help in actually, targeting the right companies who will actually use recruitment agencies. When I do business development, I seem to be more successful than most people because I target a specific sort of grey area, which will become apparent shortly. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the first type of companies that will use recruitment agencies. These are the large companies, and they typically have a PSL in place, and typically that will look like one or two or three, four possible companies, and they usually recruit about 30 to 70 people per month, and it's very high volume. These could be all sort of sectors. So for example, I recruited for a FTSE 50 company, and they had Reed, Adecco and Hayes and myself on the PSL. So me being an unknown person or having no brand or no experience or no sort of knowledge in the finance industry, I was able to get in there with the big names. And I recruited for probably 10 jobs per month. The agencies would share it and would all compete for the same job on that. So how hard is it to get? I would say that made up probably 1% of anything I've ever made, and amount of placements. It was a very small number. And I typically wouldn't go after these big companies because everyone else is in there. Everyone's built that relationship. A lot of backhanders have gone on. What I mean by that is a lot of companies that my cousin works there, and he's got my agency to work through there, and then we all have a nice lunch every month together. There's a lot of that going on, and a lot of the relationships have been built, and the doors are shut essentially. And you just have to find out with those big companies when they renew their PSL. The one thing I would really do if you really want to get in there with, for example, BT, so British Telecom, if you want to get in with them, you really need to really niche down and make out you're the only agency for them. And then obviously just try and build a relationship. I wouldn't personally do it. It's a bit of a waste of time. I just got lucky with an email blast out and a follow-up email a few times, so it worked very well for me. But yeah, I wouldn't target those. The other one, the other two I'm going to go through. The second reason why a company would use an agency is because they can't recruit themselves. And the reason being that everyone knows how to recruit. Most people would know how to post a job. We do the same thing, but they don't know exactly how to find a candidate that doesn't apply for a job. They don't know how to headhunt. They don't know how to, go on job boards, CV library job boards, have a little search around on their CV database or anything like that. They don't know. They wouldn't know how to approach people on LinkedIn. I mean, I've applied for jobs, in the past few years, and companies don't know how to recruit. They put people off. They talk down to you. They disrespect you. They don't come back to you. With a recruiter, you've got that relationship there, and the reason we can, secure candidates and do very well and vet them before is for that reason. We're experienced. We know how to recruit. These companies don't. If it's a blue chip company, they probably have an internal person, so you don't want to touch those companies. You want to look at industries where that person is not going to be doing no recruitment. They don't have a HR, or their HR is useless and doesn't really do too much. You want a blue collar sort of company, like, how can I put it? A mechanic that owns a workshop. He needs somebody. He's been advertising it, but no one's going to apply. And you know the market well. In that area in Manchester, for a mechanic for £28,000, you're not going to find anyone. Unless you've got that relationship with people, or you've built a database where you can go through in the past 6 months and go through and contact everyone from there. That's why recruiters are powerful, because you can find candidates that was in the market 6 months ago and may be open to new opportunities, so you can have that discussion with them. Especially if it's a small market, it's very good to do that. So yeah, that's one of the reasons I think probably the main reason why companies would use agencies. How do you use that to your advantage? What I really see is companies that have over £1 million turnover, upwards of 10 mil, and they have about 70 to 200 employees. I find that's the key sort of market, and that's really nice accounts. I mean, all sorts of size companies will use you. A company with 10 people may use you, but a company that's got 70 to 200 staff and they have a big warehouse, chances are they're going to use agencies. Especially if the roles, what you want to look at is the roles are too difficult to find. Not too difficult, you can't actually make a placement, but you want to find somewhere where you can actually find a person that they can't. And that's a sort of grey area, and that's where you really want to sort of home in on. You can pick a niche out of that, for example, mechanics, or I don't know, diesel engine mechanics, a really small niche, and then branch out afterwards. A lot of people try to niche down once they've established in a finance sector, but that's not the best way. I think the best way is to sort of start with a small niche and then expand up. So yeah, I hope this helped. In terms of what we'll be looking at for business development, I want you to look at those sorts of companies. And probably the third reason why companies would use agencies, with first being they can, and the second one is obviously, you know, um, they've got substantial budget and they can actually do it and they can't source the person. The third reason is the budget isn't there, or the budget is there and their internal recruiter can't find staffing. So this is probably the third reason why they would come out to agencies. Now, typically this is off a PSL sort of way, but companies that have a budget, they might have a very small budget, they're paying an internal recruiter, or they want their HR people to find it. So they only give you the really hard to sort positions. So they could be recruiting for general sort of finance people, but when it comes to someone that needs to be able to use SAP, needs to be AAT qualified, ATA, sorry, or SEMA qualified, they really find it hard because no one applies. They don't know anyone in the market in that specific area. So then they would use a recruitment agency. So what I would do, if you can obviously see on LinkedIn, there's an internal recruiter, you might think I might not contact them. However, if you go through their jobs and you see really hard, difficult to sort, I've used this a lot when I've known the market well and I've gone to someone and I've made a joke of it. I said, look, you're recruiting in Manchester for, an accounts payable person, just an example. And I bet you're finding that difficult. And they're like, oh God, yeah, we've been looking for 3 months. And then obviously I can say, look, I've placed 4 people in the last month. Happy to contact everyone, put some CVs across to you if you like. I found that was really powerful, and probably that's the most valuable thing you can actually do for companies. If you can at least give them a bit of free advice as well. I found that goes a long way. And yeah, that's a sort of secret trick, not secret, but it's a good way to get in there. But it takes experience to get that, because you've got to know the market well in every town and city, and obviously the industry as well. And you can't kid them, because that's their job and they know the market better than us as well. So I hope that helped. These are the 3 reasons why companies would use a recruitment agency.